Patricians. No. Patreon. Hello. Here's your bonus MxTRA for Season 8, Episode 24. And that was on girl groups. And as promised, this one is on the solo artists who emerged from those girl groups, some of whom are incredibly iconic. Again, this is a bonus episode, so these are always a little shorter, although some lately have been almost as long as regular episodes. So it might not be as comprehensive, but I think I actually put more into it than I realized. I will not cover every solo artist that has emerged from girl groups, only the ones who have made an impact of some sort, and, sort of the, some also rans as well. I will cover a representative cross-section from every era, as usual. And if I've left out someone you think deserves a spotlight, let me know and I'll include them in a future catch-up episode. It's what I do. Finally, keep in mind that these are specifically artists who started out in girl groups. So despite Cher and Tina Turner and Madonna and Lady Gaga and so many other iconic women absolutely killing solo stars, they're not on this list because they didn't start in girl groups. Some started in groups, Cher, Sonny and Cher, the Ike and Tina Turner, but there weren't girl groups, so they won't be on this list. Believe it or not, and if you know this show, you probably believe it, I'm starting with the 1930s and 40s to show the idea of going solo is very old. As the 1930s and 60s was pre-girl group, to the 50s anyway. The truth is there aren't really any breakout stars from the female vocal groups of these decades. There were solo female artists who were not from girl groups. So the idea of being a solo artist, of course, that's just built into the system and built into all of our desires and all of that, but not any really broke out from these groups through the 50s. Closest we come is when someone from a group associated with another artist or big band, say as backup singers, broke away and had a career. So some good examples are Anita O'Day, who worked with Gene Krupa and Stan Kenton before going solo, but she was still a name singer even with those bands. She released albums through to her death year of 2006, though consistently only through 1993, charting hits through 1941 to 50, with some other singles in the 1950s, and one in 1966 and one in 1988. Another good example is Patti Page, who worked with Eddie Getz and George Barnes' bands. Is Eddie Getz related to Stan Getz? Tell me. Somebody want to tell me that? Was the first pop artist to harmonically double her own vocal in her number 12 1948 hit Confess. That's some Les Paul shit, like multi-tracking, which people didn't do that back then. First artist to chart doing that. She then went on to score many top 10 hits and several number ones, including 1950's Tennessee Waltz, 1953, How Much Is That Doggy in the Window, in the 1950s, and stayed active through 2012. She died in 2013, having a few minor hits here and there through the early 1980s. So go Patti Page. No one from well-known proto-girl groups like the Andrews Sisters or the Merrimacs had any kind of significant solo career. Mary Macs were mixed gender, but no one had a solo career. Some girl groups that started in the 1950s would go on to have 1960s hits and then go on to have some solo artists. None of those solo artists did anything in the 1950s. It was a real transitional and seminal decade for the formation of girl group as we would come to know it. And though some tried in the 1960s, the form was still too untested. And I'll talk about in the conclusions why it is that it was so much less common for women to break from groups to go solo and why it was harder. No singers felt like there was enough of a foundation to catapult them to solo success in the 1950s and even really the 1960s. None really broke out until the 1970s. So again, different from the male history, which makes sense. 1970s set the template for solo artists emerging from girl groups. Lots of singers broke away from the hundreds of girl groups from the previous decade, but almost none had any significant success. Some examples: Mary Wilson and Florence Ballard from the Supremes tried solo careers. So did Martha Reeves from Martha and the Vandellas. And of course, Ronnie Spector Despite the last two being very well known, they didn't actually have a ton of solo success, at least not in the charts. Same with Shirley Owens from the Shirelles, among others. So a lot really tried and didn't really, slam the charts. In fact, there's only really one girl group artist in the early 70s who had significant success. And that's an understatement. And of course, it is Diana Ross of the Supremes. I'd say she was the first to set the standard for mega female solo stars. From girl groups anyway. Started her solo career in 1970 with the first of 27 albums, 3 of which hit the top 5. Touch Me in the Morning, number 5 in 73. Diana Ross, number 5 in 76. And Diana, number 2 in 1980. Highest charting album. She managed to have charting hits through the 1990s, with her run from 1970 to 84 just absolutely incredible, partly because she reinvented herself more than once. Signature, and as an artist, it's here, right? You can be one of those artists who does what they do and that's it, and you're respected in your realm, and you never really change much, and that's fine. You don't need to, you don't have to, you don't want to. Great. No, nothing wrong with that. You can be the kind of artist that changes because you want to change, and it doesn't matter what's happening with the charts, and you're just following your muse and blah, 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 blah. Great. Then there are artists who are sort of forced to change because the times are changing and they still want to be successful. Some do that well and some don't. Diana Ross is someone who did it well. She managed, signature number 1 hits from various eras is all I'm going to do for her. Otherwise, the list would be too long. Ain't No Mountain High Enough in 1970. Touch Me in the Morning in 73. The Theme from Mahogany in 75. Love Hangover in 76. Upside Down in 1980. Endless Love in 81, which is a duet. And so many, those are all the number 1 hits, and not all of them, but signature ones. So many more top 10 hits and 20, including 2 of my faves. Probably more than, I would say, of those ones that I just listed, Upside Down is a fave. But then I'm Coming Out, number 5 in 1980, is a huge frickin' fave. And then one that some people forget, which I think deserves another listen. Her 1982 number 10 hit, Muscles. I want muscles. Muscles. And that's it for solo artists in the 70s. Till we get to the 80s, breaking out. The first artist here to have lots of solo success, got her start in the 50s and 60s, hit bigger fame with her group in the 70s, didn't have her big solo successes until the 80s. And of course, that's Patti LaBelle. Philly Yo broke away from LaBelle in 1977 with her first of 20 albums through 2017. Her first top 40 album was her 6th album in 1983, I'm in Love Again. And her only number 1 album was Winner in You in 1986. Big decade for her. Several charted, though, top 10 R&B, and a few have charted top 40 since then on the R&B charts. She started releasing singles also in 1977 with some steady R&B success. But again, her first big hits weren't until the 1980s. If Only You Knew went to number 46 on the main charts, number 1 R&B. A few others hit top 10 R&B, and then her great leap in 85 and 86 with I Got a New Attitude, number 17 main, number 3 R&B. Stir It Up, number 41 main, number 5 R&B. And then the number 1 duet on both charts, On My Own, Michael McDonald duet, number 1. One more hit in 86, and then a bunch of top 10s on the R&B charts through 94. She has had some top 40 R&B hits since then through 2004. That's it. The other artists who broke from groups were not strictly in girl groups, but are worth mentioning. So that was basically the only one from the 1980s who was from a girl group who had success. But here are ones worth mentioning are from other groups. The late 1970s punk band The Runaways saw both Lita Ford and Joan Jett have significant solo careers. Lita Ford had albums from 1983 to the 2010s. It was the late 80s where she scored some hits. Kiss Me Deadly hit number 12 in 88. And Close My Eyes Forever with Ozzy hit number 8 in 89. And she's just generally well-known and well-respected. And then, of course, Joan Jett, massive success starting in 82 with her second album, I Love Rock and Roll. The title track went to number 1. Her cover of Crimson and Clover went to number 7. Olive Rock and Roll is also a cover. Do You Want to Touch Me? Do You Want to Touch? Hey! Number 20 in that year or whatever. Then some top 40s followed by 1988's number 8, I Hate Myself for Loving You So Later Than I Thought, and a couple of other top 40s. She has released music so far through 2023, both albums and singles. Another one worth mentioning, not from a girl group proper, is Belinda Carlisle from the Go-Go's. Started releasing solo albums in 86 through 96, and then 3 more in 2007, 17, and 25. Those first 3 albums hit top 40. Both of the first 2 hit number 13. Her 1986 debut single, Mad About You, hit number 3. And I love it. Love that song. And Ooh, Heaven is a Place on Earth. Big number 1 in 1987. And then number 2, I Get Weak, the following year. 1989's Leave a Light On went number 11, and 1990's Summer Rain hit number 30, so a nice run there, several years run. Many, many singles through 1999, and they all charted in at least one other country, but then none really charted here. She's released a bunch of singles in the teens and 20s as well, though none have charted, but good for her. I don't know how they're streaming, but you should check that out again. As I've said before in other episodes, the streaming and the charting are different. So the ones that stream really high may not have charted high, and vice versa. And now we get to the 1990s, the solo calm before the solo storm. Interestingly enough, the 1990s are kind of just like the 1960s in that they were peak girl group. And partly because of that, there were no solo breakout stars in that decade. None. Just like with the 1960s and the 70s, and 80s, the singers from the 90s groups didn't have significant solo success until the 2000s, 2010s, and beyond, say. What that means is I'm going to refer to my main episode and say, check out which girl groups kicked ass in the late 90s, and the 90s proper, the entire 90s, and let you figure out which bands had solo stars getting ready to burst. Did you figure it out? No? Okay, well, let's get bursting. 2000s, the explosion. Lots and lots of girl group singers went solo starting in the 2000s, and this trend hasn't really stopped, but this is for sure the biggest decade for this. Instead of covering them all in detail, I'll mention a few who made a good go but didn't rise high, and then do more with the ones who did. The first few had considerable success in the UK but didn't translate much or at all in the US, starting with the Spice Girls. Here are their solo careers. Victoria Adams. Posh Spice had 1 album in 2001, which went to number 10 in the UK. 3 singles in the early part of that decade, all top 6 in the UK, including This Groove, which hit number 3. Baby Spice, Emma Bunton, had 4 albums in the first half of the decade, 2000s, and then also in 2019 put out an album. They went numbers 4, 7, 65, and 11 in the UK, respectively. Her second album, Free Me, was also number 30 U.S. Heat. And her 2019 album, My Happy Place, was number 7 U.S. Heat. Somebody tell me what U.S. Heat is. Is that sort of like Bubbling Under? It was at the hot chart and then just changed it to Heat. Consistent singles from 99 to 07, all but the last one of top 20 UK and most of them top 10, but none of them charted in the U.S. She did a number 1 UK hit in 2001 with What Took You So Long. Melanie Brown, Mel B, Scary Spice, had 2 albums in 2000 and 2005. First hit number 28 UK. Few singles here and there in 1998 to 2013. First 5 top 20 UK with 3 in the top 5. And the number 1, I Want You Back. And the last one, For Once in My Life, hit number 2, US Dance. Interesting that all of her singles, all of them, have names of previously popular songs like I Want You Back and For Once in My Life. They weren't covers. But of all those singles, the ones that were covers were Word Up, and it's kind of like My Never Tell. That was the only one, actually, that was a cover that had the same name as an old hit. Jerry Halliwell, Ginger Spice, had 3 albums from 99 to 05. First 2 top 5 UK. Many singles in that era, and 2 in the teens. Almost all top 10 singles and 4 number 1s in the UK through 2001, including Mi Chico Latino, Lift Me Up, Bag It Up, It's Raining Men cover. Melanie Chisholm, MLC, Sporty Spice, 9 solo albums since 99. The first one and the last two in top 10 in the UK. All others very respectable chart positions. Had 6 top 10 and a few more top 20 singles through 2013, including 2 number ones in 2000, Never Be the Same Again, and I Turn to You. She's kind of in the pop, rock, dance, electro era, similar to other in the boy bands and blah, blah, blah. Especially BTS right now. All of the members who break out into solo careers have slightly different kinds of music, which is so cool. It tells you what they're interested in, and it shows you how the sum of the parts become the whole of the boy band. Skipping ahead to Girls Aloud. All 5 members of that band have had solo careers, but the only one who saw real success was Cheryl Ann Tweedy. Cheryl, going by Cheryl. 4 albums, 2009, 2014, and went number 1, 1, 2, and 7 in the UK. Many singles through 2019, including 7 top 10 and 5 number ones in the UK. The most recent, I Don't Care in 2014, and Crazy Stupid Love the same year. And that was it from Girls Aloud, who I did not cover in the girl groups episode. Maybe should have, but I can cover them in a future episode if you like. Just tell me. Let's move on to Destiny's Child. Michelle Williams had 4 albums from 2002 to 2014. Their first 3 top 30 U.S. R&B, and the second and fourth First, second, and fourth were top 2 U.S. gospel. None charted higher than 29 U.S. main, but that's a good charting position. Singles from 2002 to 2018, none hit the U.S. main, but number 1 U.S. dance hit, The Greatest, in 2008. 2014, Say Yes is number 9, Bubbling Under, and number 1 gospel. And then Kelly Rowland actually broke out as a solo hit star before Beyonce in 2002. She had 4 albums up to 2013, which hit number 12, 6, 3, and 4 on the U.S. main. And the album Here I Am in 2011 hit number 1 on the R&B charts. She's had many singles through 2021, generally consistent success. The highest to chart is Motivation, featuring Lil Wayne in 2011, which hit number 17 on the main charts, number 1 R&B. And then, of course, Beyonce Knowles. Now, I'm not mentioning her sister because she wasn't in that group, but of course Solange has a solo career too. Beyonce, 8 albums from 2003 to Cowboy Carter. All of them number 1. All of them number 1, and all of the albums went to number 1. This is Beyonce we're talking about. Singles-wise, her first single in 2002 did not do great, but from 2003's Crazy in Love, that was her first of 8 number 1 hits spread out and just set the standard for her career. She's had 15 top 5 hits. Several others in the top 10 and 20. Several more in the top 40. Absolute legend. Continues to grow and change. And oh my God. She, to me, stands with Diana Ross. And to me, I think I don't know. Guess what? I'm going to rank the girl group solo stars in the conclusions. And we'll see who comes out on top. 2010, the pop era. Though the trend continues, it does slow in this decade at a time when girl groups themselves were not quite as popular as they are now. From Fifth Harmony, you have Normani. Has only released 1 album in 2024, which was a number 30 U.S. R&B hit. Over 10 singles through that year, including Dancing with a Stranger, number 7 U.S. in 2019 with Sam Smith, and 1 more in the top 10, 1 more top 20, 1 more top 40. Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls had 2 albums in the early 2010s, both top 20 UK. Bunch of singles from 2007 to 2021, including Don't Hold Your Breath in 2011, which was a number 1 UK hit, and Right There, featuring 50 Cent, in number 3 UK hit, number 39 US hit. Camila Cabello, easily the most successful Western artist on this decade's list, and the only one I've really been aware of. From Fifth Harmony, 4 albums so far, 2018 to 2024, which have hit number 1, 3, 10, and 13. Wow. Lots of singles starting in 2015, including the number 4 Band Things. But is that supposed to say Bad Things? I think that's a mistake. 2016, and number 1 2017 hit Havana, and also number 1 in 2019, Senorita. Kim Taeyeon from Girls' Generation, I'd say the most successful overall in this decade. 3 albums, 2017, 2022, all top 2 in Korea. First top 2 or top 10 U.S. world. She's had singles 2015, the last year so far. Most were top 5 in Korea, and most were top 10 U.S. world. including 4 seasons, number 1 in Korea, number 6 U.S. World in 2019. That wraps up the 2010s. Let's get to the 2020s, K-pop and global girl group soloists. As with boy bands and girl groups, the solo artists have also boomed in the 2020s. Also as with them, most are from South Korea. Most, not all. Jade Thirlwall from Little Mix, which is British, 1 album, number 3 in the UK in 2025. No charting hits in the US. 7 singles in 24 and 25. Angel of My Dreams at number 7 in the UK. And some other successful ones. And next ones are all from Blackpink. You have Jisoo from Blackpink. 1 album, 2025, went number 1 in Korea, number 11 in U.S. sales, whatever that is. Again, what are these charts? 3 singles so far, including Flower in 2023 at number 2 in Korea, and Eyes Closed with Zayn from One Direction at number 72, U.S. main, and much higher in other countries, though much lower in Korea. Lisa from Blackpink had 1 album last year, went number 7 in the U.S. Singles started, though, in 2021, including Rockstar, which hit number 70 in the U.S. in 2024, and Born Again, which hit number 68 in the U.S. the next year. Interesting, she's charted higher in the U.S. than in Korea, and even higher in many other countries. Rosé, Why Do You Know Her? She's from Blackpink. She had 1 album, Rosie, 2024, which went to number 2 in Korea, number 3 U.S. main, Why Do You Know Her? Singles starting in 2021, including Why You Know Her. Apata, number 1 in 2024 with Bruno Mars, number 1 in Korea, and number 3 in the U.S. And a few more top 10 in Korea, and that's Why You Know Her. Jennie Kim from Blackpink, only 1 album so far. Last year on number 2 in Korea, number 7 U.S. main. 1 single in 2018, Solo, appropriate, went number 1 in Korea. And then singles in 2023 to this year, including a couple number 1s in Korea and several on the U.S. main charts, including this year's Dracula with Tame. It's a Tame Impala remix that hit number 10 U.S. main. And 2025's Like Jenny, number 1 in Korea, number 83 U.S. main. Sunmi from Wonder Girls, another band I did not mention in the girl groups, but again, maybe should have. 1 album, 2025, went to number 30 in Korea. Bunch of singles, 2013 to 25, including several top 10 in Korea, many top 5 U.S. World, including Gashina in 2017, which went to number 1 in Korea, number 3 U.S. World. While we can't say anyone but Rosé Apata has entered the U.S. consciousness, many have had both U.S. and especially worldwide success, and my gut says there will be more to come in this decade, both from all of them and all our legacy stars, and some brand new ones, and of course the girl groups themselves. So conclusions. Some incredible stars, but you'll notice far fewer than in the male solo breakout stars. Why? The girl groups and individual women were and are every bit as talented, so what factors have gone into so many fewer having success? I think it's these. Number 1, many male groups were built from the beginning around future leads. Think of Jackson 5, New Edition, NSYNC, One Direction. And while female groups often did have signature singers, like the Ronettes, Ronnie Spector, Vandellas with Martha, Supremes with Diana Ross eventually, they were either largely encouraged to stay with the group or not very strongly supported when they did leave. Didn't get the money and promotion that they needed. And just support, artistically and emotionally and all that. Number 2, the gender thing. I'm sure it's related to there being something about a group of women that's enticing to men. Traditionally, men are those who've had the most power in the industry, while that bunch of friends or fraternity or gang feel of the boy bands could only go so far before it seemed too homoerotic for their comfort, despite there being several gay members in boy bands and in girl groups. Number 3, the industry has always allowed more autonomy for men and more agency. Men only had to be good to prove themselves worthy of a solo career and the chance at greatness. Women had to be great to even be allowed to have a solo career and show that they're great. Women have always had to fight to be seen as serious artists, and nowhere is that more true than with girl groups who are already seen as fluff compared to more serious music like rock, country, singer-songwriter, soul, R&B, and even hip-hop. Number 4 reason, until the Spice Girls, girl groups' individual members didn't have very distinct identities, as I had mentioned in the main episode, unless they were the designated lead singers, as per what I just said. From the proto boy band Beatles onward, men in many boy bands were given stereotypical personae, whether or not it was true. Sensitive, rebellious, sexy, quirky, cute, artistic, etc. Girl groups had more balance between members for the most part and took much longer to get to where boy bands had already been. Again, Spice Girls, which meant few members had distinct enough profiles to be considered for breakout solo stardom. Number 5, male solo careers have a longer time to gestate. Men can break out as solo stars at just about any age, while women have historically had to do it when they were quote-unquote young enough, so age, gender bias plays a part. I'd say these are the reasons why any woman who rose that far above, and in particular Diana Ross and Beyonce, could be considered often more culturally dominant and certainly more influential and iconic, even if just for future female singers, which I would argue it goes beyond that, that and the surge of popularity for boy bands and girl groups have made going solo more common in recent years, with most of these stars in the last decade or so still staying with the bands, again in both girl groups and boy bands. My hands down favorite for girl groups, it's Beyonce. Though also, of course, I love a lot of what Diana Ross has done. But I'm going to say, and as I said, I was going to rank these. There weren't enough to rank. But if you had to go 1-2 punch of Diana Ross and Beyonce, Diana Ross is like a goddess. So she's like in a different realm, let's say. But Beyonce is the queen. And to me, I'm gonna arguably say she has had more artistic impact and has had more cultural impact, especially lately, and will eventually have more musical impact if she hasn't already. Honorable mentions, though, besides those 2 big ones, Camila Cabello, Jenny Kim from Blackpink, Kelly Rowland also, and Patti LaBelle, you got to give it to. But hey, who are your favorites? Who are your favorite girl group solo stars? Do you agree with me that Beyonce surpasses Diana Ross, or you think I'm crazy? And did I miss anyone? I bet you I did. I'd like to know the answers to these questions and everything else, because as always, my objectives here are music, conversation, and connection. If you are hearing this in the wild, so to speak, for free, please consider supporting these kinds of bonus MxTRA episodes at patreon.com/musicisnotagenre for as little as $1 a month. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.